Well, hello and welcome back to the second episode on the Alpha 1 stereo install. Now, apologies that it's taken a bit longer to get to this than I was hoping, but the flip side of just being in a bit of a chaotic time, I've actually spent a week now with the Alpha 1 amplifier. It is incredible. The way it's changed the way this hi-fi sound system sounds it's blown my mind. I've turned into all those other YouTubers that just say it sounds really good, but the power that thing is putting through these factory speakers, the way Alpha 1 have tuned the EQ to work with factory speakers and get the most out of them, is genuinely really impressed me. These factory subs pump right now. It is really, really good. But the second part of this install is the Alpha 1 speaker set. Or speaker system. I'm calling it a system again because they've done the same thing that they did with the amp. They have made this completely plug and play. They've taken out anything or any of the complicated parts of choosing a speaker setup for your BMW, and they've just made it work out of the box. Now, one thing they have done, which I'm going to pick on them a little bit, but they make this so that it works with both the factory amplifier and then the BimmerTech Alpha 1 amplifier, and they do that because they've got these, I mean, I know what's in there, but they're basically working as crossovers, and the reason they've done this is it adjusts the factory amp signal to work better with these speakers. So this will be, I guess, to keep it simple, it is a filter, but it's removing some of the sound that the factory amp would normally put into these speakers. Now, obviously, if you've got the Alpha 1 system, you don't need this. If you've got the Alpha 1 amp, I should say, which is a DSP, you wouldn't need this, but BimmerTech do supply it so that it is plug and play for a factory system or an aftermarket system. With the subs, they don't have them, so these are just designed to handle whatever gets thrown at them. Yeah, with the subs, they don't need the filters. These are just going to handle whatever gets thrown at them, whether it's from the factory system or the Alpha 1 amp. But I think it's going to be good. Okay, so what I want to do here, there are heaps of videos on how to install this. Alpha 1 make it super easy. So you get all your adapters, spacers, and they have instructions. There's nothing complicated about installing them. Door cards off, unscrew, plug in, back on. These ones, seats out, unscrew, plug in, back on. Nice and easy. But what I want to do for you guys, and something that's a bit different from what I've seen, I'm going to pull the factory speakers out and then we'll do a comparison side by side when they're sitting here and just see if we can see any differences or any reasons that make these better in the build quality. Alright, I'll see you guys shortly. Safe to say that needs a vacuum. Anyway, so we have the speakers here. I've got the front door here, which is the mid-bass and the tweeter, or the mid-range, I suppose you can call it. We've got the rear door, which is the same speaker as the door speaker in the front. And then on this side, we have the Alpha 1 sub and the original factory sub. So something I just thought I might show you guys as well. The OEM sub, which we can see here. Let's make sure we're focusing. The OEM sub, you can see it has the magnet on the front. There's no actual magnet on the back of the sub, and that is to do with packaging, so that you have this slim subwoofer to sit under the seat and then still work in a box in a space where you wouldn't really think you can actually fit a subwoofer. And these things do work really well, especially when you're running them with the Alpha 1 amplifier. So the Alpha 1 sub works on the same principle there, so no magnet on the back, big magnet on the front, nice shallow design. The differences in the two, hopefully we're going to be able to see it. Okay, and the differences in the two, hopefully we're going to be able to see it. This Alpha 1 sub, I mean, it could be as simple as this is just a brand new sub where this one is coming up 15 years old. The tension on the flexibility of the cone, this has a lot more tension, which generally means it's going to need more power to get it moving, where this one moves quite easily. The size of the, and hopefully we can see it, but the size of the rubber diaphragm between the Alpha 1 and the factory sub is pretty similar. In fact, I'd say it's the same. Cone material is the same, but yeah, there is something different going on in this section. This section actually flexes, and I think I mentioned it in the other video, we've got the two different types of magnet, and this one, you know what? They're actually pretty similar in weight. These two speakers are fairly similar, although this one just feels a lot tighter. Similar amount of flex. This one does have a full cover on the front. This section, these ribs, basically hold the middle section and the outer frame. And then we've got like a soft speaker cover material there, where the Alpha 1 doesn't have that material at all. It's just got the frame holding it all together. They're similar. I mean, these are also very impressive when you power them properly, but I'm keen to see what these are going to sound like shortly. And just quickly comparing the door speakers, we've got the factory one at the top, Alpha one at the bottom. The first thing you notice when you compare the two, the original door speaker is much heavier. It's probably twice the weight of the Alpha one, but keeping in mind these do have the neodymium magnets, which means you get a lighter but more powerful magnet, and I guess that's why it weighs so much less. Something to note as well, the original door speakers is the more original style of speaker, so the magnet is all on the back, where the Alpha ones appear to have a magnet on the back and also a magnet on the front, much like the factory subwoofer does. It's got the magnet at the front there. Now I assume that they're both magnets, although it is very hard to tell. I'm sure it works. I'm sure it works. We're going to have it in the car shortly and find out. The other important thing to note with the Alpha ones, they are an aluminium cone instead of a paper cone, and I'm hoping this just allows us to have a much brighter, clearer sound, which is probably the biggest issue with these current speakers. They're nice and loud, but the clarity for like an instrumental type music just isn't quite there. Looking at the tweeters, which I guess is where all the clarity comes from, the factory tweeter here is also a paper cone, something I don't know if the camera's going to pick it up, but it might. My eyesight's struggling, but there is damage to the flexi section of the tweeter, that little outer rubber strip. The actual tweeter size, let's see if I can get them both under the light. The Alpha one appears to have a smaller cone for the tweeter, and also it does appear to be aluminium, where the original one has the paper cone, as I just mentioned. But yeah, Alpha one's got this nice billet piece on the back that we can't even really look at. There it is. It's a very nice looking speaker, where the other one just looks like a cheap OEM speaker. Alright, so that is the comparison. These are obviously a lot newer technology, but they are lighter. They feel a lot tighter. Both the sub and these speakers all feel quite nice and tight. I guess I better get them back in the car. Now, before I do bolt them back in, I just want to point out one thing that a lot of people do miss when they're installing car stereos. So the factory speakers do mount onto this section of the door card here. So it seals on this edge. Actually, it might be an edge in there. But then what basically happens, the cavity between this part of the door card and this part of the door becomes the sub box. So if you're doing this, if this foam has a big hole in it, the speaker box is not going to work how it's designed to. So you do need to make sure that this is all in good condition, it's all sealed along, and then you create that speaker box in the cavity between this part and this part. I'll get it put back in. And I just sort of show you quickly, this is a rear door, but Alpha one provide all the bracketry and spaces really, but just there, so everything mounts up perfectly and you get a very tight seal on the foam section, and the seal is really crucial to ensure that you create the enclosure for this speaker to work in all around the door card. Even things like there's a little bit of butyl adhesive on the side of the filters, just to make sure that it all sits in properly and nothing's gonna get caught or stop it from making the seal that it's supposed to make. It is a nice bit of kit, and I mean, I know there are ways you can do it cheaper, but the time it would take to make even an aftermarket speaker seal like this would just be a nightmare. This fits, it works in the enclosure, they've done a good job. I like it. Well, we are back. It is the next day, and I've spent about an hour listening to the system yesterday. However, it was Christmas Eve. Today is Christmas, so Merry Christmas to everyone. I'm going to try and get this video out today. But I completely forgot that I had the wrong profile loaded in the amp. I sort of put the speakers in, started listening to it, and then all of a sudden an hour had passed. The main thing that I noticed yesterday is the subs hit so much harder. In fact, I'll play a little clip. Actually, I might have to overlay it because it's probably copywritten. But I had some pens just sitting on the passenger seat. They've been there for a couple of weeks, actually. And when you turn it up with the subs now, the pens are bouncing off the seat. They hit so much harder. However, I'm going to be honest, initially, the sound wasn't that different. I'm feeling the music a lot more with these speakers, but I don't know if it's much louder, but maybe it's because I've got the other profile. So the profile that I had loaded in the DSP was for the factory speakers. I'm just going to load the profile that was on the amplifier or how BimmerTech sent it to me, which was for these speakers. So I'll get that loaded, and to load the profile, in fact, I'll show you the whole process because it is kind of simple. Okay, so hopefully we'll get this working with not too much glare on the screen. But the software that we're using is this ATF DSP tool, which actually works for quite a few DSPs. And it communicates just through the USB cable. The DSP does need to be on. In fact, we are playing music right now. So I'm going to connect. And you can see that I've got map 1 loaded, and that's just what was on it when I've been playing with the factory speakers. But this one here, map 3, is what should be on it for the BimmerTech speakers. And so, in fact, we can do it while it's playing, and you'll hear it load the other map. So we'll load map 3. The car just went to sleep, which means the amp will turn off. Wake up! Wake up! Okay. Right, we'll go load, starting communication, and we have map 3 loaded. Now that's it. That's all you need to do. And I'll leave that running. We can see everything is working properly. Let's take it for a test drive. The car is rattling. It's very bassy. You guys might not even be able to hear me.
You got a mind, but even that could change. You could flip the gray matter like some batter in your brain. That's why I say, fake it till you make it A. And if you play that game, then you just might make a change. Rearrange all the bad to okay. Take the worst I say and turn them to a game. Take the best I say and put them on display. On repeat in your brain till you're feeling no more pain. Never slow yourself down, you can do some more. Push that start of pain and find a door. Open it up and finally.
So when I actually listened to the pen bouncing clip yesterday, this microphone that's on this new camera, it's a much better microphone and it can't handle the noise that's going on in the car. So maybe that sounds terrible to you guys, but if you can put some decent headphones on, and if we listen to it at like this volume, you'll hear how much bass is there. I'm just going to go back to my tone settings, which I was playing. I installed CarPlay yesterday, and it's annoying me. So I just want to put the equalizer. There's tons of glare. I'm just going to put the equalizer back to neutral, because we now have the correct map. I know it's not really a map, but I've now got the correct map on the DSP to suit these speakers. So I don't want to mess with the EQ at all. We'll see how it sounds.
You got me shook from the way your body looks. Got me riding hooks, got me feeling like a rook. I don't do it by the book, but for you I'll take a look. Don't know what your mama took, sweet and spicy like a cook, yeah. I'll keep it real, let's make a deal. Buy you a meal if you just let me feel. Get out your heels, grab on the wheel. Back to my place at the top of the hill. Don't have regrets, I know what's next. She need a fresh, I'll be back in a sec. Look at them legs, don't make me beg. Back to the room, let me show you my bed. Your body feels like taking on a drug. You got me feeling.
Alright, so there was just a few minutes between takes there. I wanted to think of something meaningful to say, and I probably messed up by installing the amplifier first, because that amplifier made such a difference to this car stereo. Like, it really took it into an incredible level. Putting these speakers in hasn't been as much of a drastic change. Now, to try and quantify it with some numbers, the bass is probably 30 to 40% better than it was with the factory speakers after upgrading to the BimmerTechs. And in my mind, that's a no-brainer. But the vocals. Now, I was kind of expecting a little bit more from the vocals, but I've been listening to this car for a week with the DSP amp and the original speakers. I did get a chance to compare this car with the DSP amp, factory hi-fi speakers, and it was either a Bowers & Wilkins or a B&O. I think it was Bowers & Wilkins system in an F31. And it wasn't a huge difference bass-wise, but the Bowers & Wilkins did have a much clearer high end. It was a much brighter sound, and I was kind of thinking that these speakers might take it to that type of sound. Right now, the vocals are not incredible. I'm sorry, BimmerTech. They're not bad by any means. This thing sounds really good. And in fact, if you listen to modern music, so rap, R&B, electro, this sounds wild. But if you want to listen to older music where you've got instrumentals, acoustic guitars, like real instruments, maybe this isn't as clear as it could be. Now, what I haven't done yet is tune the DSP, and I did just go and calibrate my brain, because I'm lucky enough, I currently have here an X5M. Now, this car is a bit special because it is an M car, but with the X5Ms, they have speakers in the D pillars. Hopefully we can pick this up. There. Now, those extra speakers mean that a normal Logic 7 amp, I'm gonna sit in it because it's cool. Those speakers mean a normal Logic 7 amp won't actually do. So this car has one of the most powerful amps in any car other than a Bowers & Wilkins or a Bang & Olufsen setup. These are actually related or referred to as an individual amplifier. Now, my BMW stereo whiz that I've been feeding off for all this information, he told me that this amplifier actually is higher spec'd than the amplifier that BimmerTech supply. Keeping in mind, this amplifier is also fiber optic, so it's on the MOST bus, so you should get a really clean signal. This car has the factory Bluetooth audio comm box as well, and I went and had a listen to it, and I can say wholeheartedly that that stereo from BimmerTech sounds better than the individual hi-fi in an X5M with all the fiber optical, all the MOS bus and everything. The tweeters, everything is better. It's got way more bass, the high end is better. That's really good praise. What's really ruined me is how good the amp sounded with the factory speakers. The amp, the DSP, is a really clever bit of kit. If you're looking at doing this upgrade, it is a no-brainer to go the amp and go the subs. The subs picked up a lot of bass. Like, seeing those pens bounce off my seat there is pretty wild. You feel the bass. Maybe at full volume it doesn't sound much different. However, all the way through the volume range, those subs bring in the bass a lot earlier. So you get a nicer fill through the volume range. The subs are a no-brainer. Can I recommend the door speakers? I think, well, if you're buying the other two, you may as well just add them on. But if you're on a budget, just go the amp. If you're on a bit of a budget, go the amp and the subs. If you're a baller, just get the lot. You won't regret it. That stereo absolutely sounds better than this stereo. It's just the value for the amp is insane. And the subs are really impressive as well. I mean, it sounds better than this car. It sounds better than this X5M. Guys, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you all for watching. Have a Merry Christmas. There is a promo code for BimmerTech, which is valid till the end of the year, so I've been a bit late with my videos. Sorry, BimmerTech. And if you are enjoying the videos, please subscribe. I'd love to get to 40,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Probably not going to happen, but hey, we can be optimistic. I'm going to have another drink. Merry Christmas to you all.